obviously we're here in Montpelier at the State House. Good morning.
Fantastic. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to be here today. I really appreciate that. My name is Christopher Sweezy. Um, I am the region director for a company called RK Environmental Services. Um, Before I get into our organization, I just wanted to inform you that I am in the professional pest management industry for 40 plus years. I may not look it, but I got one of those crazy cards in the mail the other day that said Medicare. And I have to tell you, when I got that card, I was like, ah, but been in the pest management industry for 40 some years, and I've been working for RK Environmental Services for the previous 18 years as their region director. I am currently in charge of three particular regions: New England, which includes Vermont, the New York, Long Island metro area, which is where I'm located. I am on Long Island. Also the Northern New Jersey territory and Western New York. So it's quite a large area. RK Environmental Services is a relatively young company, about 24 years old. And like I said, I've been with them for 18. When I started, there were 6 employees, and we worked primarily in the New York metro area. Today, we find ourselves servicing 33 states under our umbrella, and we've grown to a company of 155 or so employees. One of the things that's unique about us is that we work primarily, we have a niche, if you will. We work 99% for the food industry, which means that we provide professional pest control management services with an emphasis on food safety to very large food manufacturers, food producers, food distribution, and on the lower end of the spectrum, food retail. Anything to do with food, that's where we really have shined, and we've really grown our reputation and our skill set, where we work for some very large clients, including PepsiCo, Frito-Lay, Bimbo Bakeries USA, the largest commercial bakery in the world, and some very large food manufacturing facilities throughout the United States. What I would like to just convey to you all this morning is some feelings that I have regarding the bill H326 as it's been proposed, and really just give you an overview and some insight into how this bill could potentially affect our ability to provide safe food that we all eat. It's common knowledge, I think, that the EPA is very involved with this. Some of the states where we work, one of them in particular, California, is probably the toughest state right now as far as the use of rodenticides. So let me just say that rodenticides in of themselves have a definite use and are beneficial to the food industry. It is our first line of defense against rodents. And whether we're talking about facilities in Brooklyn, New York, large urban areas, or areas that are in remote states, from me anyway, that are more rural, more agricultural, it's still an important part of what we do. I think what I really like to make sure is known, and again, I'm certified. I'm a certified pesticide applicator in New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Vermont, Indiana. I think that's it. But with that certification comes a lot of training, a lot of experience, constant re-education. And I've had the privilege of working with some really fine people, scientists and scientific people. Recently worked on a project in New York in Central Park using carbon dioxide in rat burrows. It's an alternative to rodenticide, second generation anticoagulants. And there's a lot of things moving and shaking with alternatives to rodenticides. However, right now, at this point in time, there's not, and it could happen, and I think it's going to happen, but there's not a really good alternative for us to use. And when we use rodenticides, and again, our company and my belief is that we really protect the food that we all eat. So when we talk about our first line of defense, yeah, in a perfect world, if we had a brand new building that was structurally sound and rodent-proofed, and it was impermeable to pests, including rodents, all would be well. There'd be no no need to use rodenticide. However, this is the real world, and we're dealing with sometimes poor maintenance, poor sanitation, structural concerns where rodents can get in. And rodents, whether it's Norway rats, field mice, deer mice, whatever type of rodent, they carry a lot of bacteria, pathogens, viruses. And all of that is a direct threat to the food industry. So when I looked at at H326, I was thinking to myself, I can see the need. We all want to protect the environment. We all want to protect non-target organisms. And thus the reason why we're getting a little bit ahead of the curve here at our organization, in that we are requiring all of our PMPs, our service professionals, to become certified pesticide applicators. In different states, there's different licensing. Certified pesticide applicator is probably the top of the top. Below that, in certain states, you have technician levels. Below that, you have apprentice levels. We saw this coming for a few years, and we made the move to make sure that all of our people out there become certified pesticide applicators, which means they've had and continue to have extensive training in safe use of these products. Of course, we use locked, anchored rodent bait stations. That's a given. But we have to know a lot more than just putting a product in a box, locking it, checking it on a regular basis. We have to know really what the impact is to other organisms around us, including us, human beings. So we're pretty far ahead of the curve as far as our own staff getting us to that level. One of the problems that we see, and we see it in every state where we work, is the use of these products by the general public. To me, any restricted use pesticide should be banned from use by the general public, because you see things, and things that are quite scary. People throwing poison into woods, into fields where it's not protected. There's no control. What we offer is a level of control. So our opinion is at RK Environmental Services that these products should not be available to the general public. They should not be sold on the internet. They should not be in the hands of anyone other than the professionals. I think that banning them completely, although it might be a goal for us all to get to, right now is a poor time to do that, simply because of the unavailability of alternatives. There is a lot of work going on. This project that I worked on using CO2, which is carbon dioxide gas, in rodent burrows, was highly effective. There are certain things that we can do also, creating a rodent bait station, if you will, that introduces CO2 inside it. A rodent goes inside it. There's no rodenticide per se, no first or second generation anticoagulants, but there is CO2 gas, and that is lethal to the rodents. So there's things that are going on. We also work for a lot of food manufacturers that are under what they call an organic label. They have organic audits. They have organic third-party certifying bodies that come in. In those cases, we can't use certain rodenticides. We have to use a specific rodenticide. And quite honestly, it's not as effective. Not to say it's not an alternative, but it's not an effective alternative. I really, really hope as a nation, we can all get together and combat pests, and pests have been with us. Think about the bubonic plague. Think about, I just gave a class the other day and we were talking about these little things that we all deal with, especially now that it's getting warmer, these mosquitoes, and how mosquitoes are the most deadly organism on the face of the earth. They kill more people every year than wars and all kinds of things. So I'm here today just to say that we have the ability to properly and safely use first and second generation anticoagulant rodenticides. It must be left in the hands of the professional. If we just throw out the baby with the bathwater and we eliminate the use of these products altogether right now, what I believe we're going to see is more food safety concerns, more listeria, more salmonella, more problems like that, which can cause sickness and can cause death. And there's also a huge economic factor to it. You know, if we're swabbing for listeria or salmonella in a food processing plant that was introduced by rodents, it can lead to recalls, downtime, production stopped. It can be a huge, huge expense to us all. Besides that break in the distribution of the food that we all need to sustain us and to live. So I really,
Mr. Sweezy, I'm going to interrupt here. We've got a question from one of the committee members. If Representative Nelson, if you had a question.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Sweezy, so all generation 2 rodenticides now are under a class A
correct.
from the EPA, and
Correct.
that just started. How long ago did that become a class A? Was that just last year, or?
I believe it was 2024. I'm not positive. I believe it was.
Yeah, last year. Okay, and all in the state of Vermont, all Gen 1s now have to be placed in bait stations.
Correct.
All right, but they can be used by the public. They're class B or class
Yeah,
C.
the public can still obtain these products and still use them.
Okay, and of course, here in Vermont, it doesn't take very long and you're not in Vermont anymore. So, that's an issue we face with, even if we moved generation 1 into a different category here in Vermont, I fear that people would drive across the river with no regard. Okay, and what's the name of the compound you use for the organic food hubs?
Currently, I believe there's two. One of them is Terrid. That's T as in Thomas, E-R-A-D as in David. Terrid 3 and Terrid 3 AG. Those are on the national approved organic list as a rodenticide.
Okay, those are OMRI. And who do you work for here in the state of Vermont? If you can tell us, or if you'd rather not, that's okay too.
I can tell you. We work for Agrimark, Cabot. There's a I believe it's McClure's Honey, multiple Price Chopper supermarkets, Ocean State Job Lot, retail facilities. And I'm sure there's others that just, I'd have to look it up, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So I just really, again, I consider myself to be a professional, been in the industry a long, long time. Fortunate enough to work for a company that deals exclusively with the food industry. And the growth that we've had is phenomenal. But when things like this happen, we have to be smart. We have to think, you know, if we were to totally ban all these rodenticides, never be able to use them again, they're eliminated. I look at the risk, right? But there's also a positive to it. If that were the case, and again, I'm probably contradicting myself, but if that were the case, would it lead to a more robust integrated pest management system? It may. Would it lead to more opportunity and more thoroughness with exclusion work? It could. But right now, with the state of the art technology that we have, this is not the time to ban the use of these products to keep the food that we all eat safe. And I'd like to conclude with that today. If anyone has any questions, though, and I can answer them, I'd be happy to.
I'm gonna just have you tell us a little bit more about the those alternative products, because I think we're going to be hearing, and if we haven't already heard, suggestions that that there are other products on the market and other directions you can go. I don't think we had heard that there was anything particularly specific to the organic market, so that's helpful to know. But you suggested that they're less effective, and I'm wondering if you can speak to that a little bit more. If you have, if there's a way of quantifying that, are they more costly for the same dollar amount? Are they, X percentage less effective in reducing the pests? I don't know how you would quantify that, but if your position is that they're less effective, if you can just speak more to that, that would be helpful.
As far as the Terrid products, and there are multiple ones that are on the NOP, the National Organic Pesticide Approved List. In our experience with those, they are a rodenticide. They are an alternative. However, and I can't quantify it with statistics. I can only look at the rate of consumption, the rate of how could I say this? How attractive they are to the rodents. If you take this Terrid product and then you take a traditional rodenticide, whether that be First Strike or Contract or something like that, and you put them side by side and you introduce some rodents into the environment, you're going to find, or what we have found, was the bait acceptance was nowhere near as great with the organic product as it was with the other product. It could be the formulation. It could be some of the attractant that they put into it. They use seed, they use grain, but we don't have enough. I can only give you a broad stroke, and that is in facilities where we implement this, we haven't had great success in eliminating or even decreasing the total rodent population in the surrounding environment, which in itself lends risk to the food production areas, the food production lines, et cetera. The other thing that I talked about as an alternative, and let's just step away from rodenticides for a second, is the CO2 product that introduces CO2 gas into a chamber, which is built into a weighted rodent bait station. definitely, it's definitely something we're looking at. It's not patented yet. It's coming. There's another one though that is on the market. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but it's a rodent bait station that's set up like traditional ones. The rodents go inside the two doors. There's two doors, and it's baffled. And there's an electrocution strip. So when they step on it, they're electrocuted. It's a rodenticide, right? It's electricity, but it's a rodenticide. That's something else we're really digging into right now. Trying to find that as an alternative. As the laws change, we need to come up with some sort of tool, some sort of ammunition against this organism that has been here longer than we have, some of these rodents. So those are just two of the ones that I can think off the top of my head.
Thank you. Representative Burt.
Thank you. I just wondering, so most of the time when a rat or a mouse goes into these bait stations that contains rodenticide, how long is it before they typically die, and where do they go? Are they normally found inside these bait stations, or is that an issue as well, where you're with rodents just leaving the bait station and dying elsewhere? Is that an issue that you find potentially creating problems, or a food safety issue as well?
I can't say that I have, and it depends on, excuse me, the formulation that you're using. Some are single feeding, some are multiple feeding. I will tell you that I just recently was at a food plant, and we were having a hard time with rodents, and we used a non-toxic rodenticide. It's got a luminous product in it. So we did it to try to track where these rodents were getting into a food plant. They would consume it. It was not a rodenticide. It would not cause any mortality. However, when the rodents defecate and we find the droppings, they have a color to them, so that we know that they were eating the luminous bait block, if you can call it a bait, so we could track better. As far as secondary poisoning, that's always a concern, right? If a rat were to consume enough of this product, go out into a field and die, and a hawk scoops down and starts eating that rat, that dying or dead rat, that can cause secondary poisoning. So it's very, very important. I don't have a lot of experience in areas. My forte is urban pest control, but in more agricultural based applications, rural applications, I know that our team is instructed on which is the best choice to use. And again, we're also dealing with approved pesticide lists, whether they're the clients, they're ours, some governmental organization. The Department of Defense has their own. There's different ones that we can use. So it is always a concern. Many, many times we find rodents dead inside the bait stations. They find it comfortable. It's dark. It's warmer than the outside. They have a food source. They don't know that it's a poison, but it is. I don't know if that answers your question or not, though.
No, that helps a lot. Thank you.
Did you, I don't know whether this is your area of expertise or not, but can you tell us anything about the typical range of any of the species that you're targeting? How far does a Norway rat move around, during the day, the night?
I'll start with mice. Mice generally have a home area 30 to 40 feet. 40 might be a stretch from their nest. Norway rats are interesting. Some of them will venture quite far. And when I say quite far, we have found rat burrows, and we have used trail cams to see their movement. And they will go quite a distance, whether it's in a subway or it's around a barn in a rural setting. I've seen personally 100 yards that they'll venture from the nest. Mice are a little bit more concentric. You know, I like to say 20 to 40 feet, but I would say it's 25 to 30 is from my experience.
All right. Are there other questions? Representative Boslin?
Yeah, so you mentioned that in your practice, as it's gone for 40 years, rodenticides are the first line of defense. And I guess I'm encouraged to hear about these alternative things that you're talking about in terms of the secondary poisoning, which I think is our primary concern in terms of impact on wildlife. You know, like when you talked about the luring a rodent into a box or whatever it would be, and then the electrical thing, how close is that to happening? Is that around the corner? Is that in a test phase? Like you said, in California you can't use rodenticides, so are you using that there? What do you do in California if you can't use rodenticides as your first line of defense?
I have no experience working in California. I've been begging for them to send me out there because I'd love to go out there and see. But I have talked to some of my colleagues, and what they're using are, they do have some tests, and we have a special permit to use the electrocution rodent boxes as opposed to the ones with bait. And we're also using Evo rodent bait stations without any material inside it, no rodenticide, but they're built in such a way that they have something called T-Rex snap traps. So just think mouse trap, rat trap. They sit inside the louvers inside these bait stations, which again are locked, anchored, and secured. They're drawn in by different lures. Believe it or not, if you have one of our biggest, in the old days, we used to use peanut butter or Nutella, but there's a lot of nut allergies out there amongst people, right? And people that work in food plants, et cetera. So we have to be really careful of that too. So there are commercially available lures, and it's all scent driven, whether it be a peanut smell, a chocolate smell, something like that will draw them in, and then the snap traps do their thing. We've also used glue trays, glue boards inside those devices.
So if those are effective, then why don't you use those more than the rodenticides, which have the secondary impact? It seems like it would be advantageous to use those alternative strategies and not use the poison, in terms of, at least in our area, where we're finding in wildlife areas, there is a lot of secondary exposure and it's impacting wildlife.
You know, it's a really good question. And I think that it's always been the tradition to use a rodenticide because they're effective. They work. Now we have some alternatives. And again, it's all changing and morphing almost every day. But when we're forced to use something non-chemical, and we're going to go with the electrocution, the CO2, or the mechanical devices, the problem with that is, think about a rodent bait station outside a food plant, and you have it set up so you have 2 T-Rex snap traps in there. We can't be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These are checked usually on a monthly or semi-monthly basis. So a rat goes in, gets trapped in a T-Rex trap inside. Might be a week, might be 2 weeks before we can retrieve that and discard the carcass properly. In those 2 weeks, there are other rodents running around. The rodenticide provides that around-the-clock action, where mechanical, even the electrocution, the glue boards, it's a one and done. You're going to catch one, you're going to catch a rodent, and then you're going to retrieve the carcass, and you're going to reset and rebait the trap. There could be a week, there could be 2 weeks in between that, and that whole time, there's no coverage there.
Before we let you go, a couple more questions, Mr. Sweezy. I just wanted to ask whether you ever have clients who say, thank you, you've done a great job, we appreciate your work, and, be happy to give you a good reference and basically, end the relationship because you've solved their problem. Or typically, are you with somebody until they, go out of business or until they find a competitor at a lower rate? If you get what I'm saying.
I think I do. I think I do. Um, I think one of the things that I love about my position and our organization is working for the food industry. We all eat. We all eat every day. There's always going to be a need for food. There's always going to be food production going on. If I go to Mr. and Mrs. Smith's house and I'm doing residential pest control, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith call me, and they have Eastern subterranean termites, they have German roaches, they have Indian meal moths, they have ants. We could go in. I'm a certified entomologist. I love the fact that people ask me all day to identify insects. It's my thing. I love it. I've gotten 2 emails since I've been talking to you this morning. Can you help me identify this? We go in, we take care of it. We get rid of the termites. We get rid of the ants. We get rid of whatever the pest is. And Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Jones say, job well done. Thank you very much. Here's a check. We'll call you again in the future if we ever need you. Food industry is always, think about it. It's always morphing. There's always incoming product. A lot of the pests that we find in a food processing plant are introduced through incoming hitchhikers, pallets of product coming into their facility that are infested with something, rodents, insects, what have you. Believe it or not, employees, a lot of employees, when we find German cockroaches in a food processing plant, I tell my people this all the time. The number one way that German cockroaches are introduced into a food processing plant is employee behavior. Somebody brings them in their lunchbox, their knapsack, in their shoes. Locker rooms. Locker rooms are like, that's where it starts. So I think the answer to your question is, in the niche that we're in, servicing the food industry, yeah, we're never done. It's an ongoing thing. We're constantly monitoring, constantly inspecting, and when things come up, we're providing solutions to that.
Thank you. That does answer my question. And we got one more question, and then we're going to let you go and switch over to our next witness. But Representative Nelson.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Sweezy, what's the reproduction cycle on Norway rats?
Norway rats produce very quickly, not as quickly as mice, but I have seen, you can read textbooks and you'll see different numbers, but a Norway rat will have a litter of pups, 3, 4, I think is probably average, I think. And they mature and become sexually active probably 60 days, 65 days.
So,
All right.
all right, thank you.
You're
Good.
welcome.
You're welcome to stay with us if you want, because we're going to take a little more testimony on this bill. And welcome Blair Calder, who I think may be calling in or zooming in from the West Coast. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I'm in Sonoma, California.
If in California specifically. Okay, well, that's good to know, because we were just, as you may have heard, talking about California's existing regulations and statutes. And thank you for being up early or relatively early and joining us.
I'm a morning person. It's okay. I'm normally at work by now anyway.
Well, if you could tell us, introduce yourself, please tell us who you represent, and we'd like to hear from you on the bill that we've got in front of it, H326.
Sure. So my name is Blair Calder. I'm the president of Automatic Trap Company. We are the North American distributor for the Good Nature product line of rodent control self-resetting traps. So Good Nature is a New Zealand company that started a little over 20 years ago. And they invented a product that uses CO2 gas cartridges as the power, and it delivers a instantaneously fatal strike to specific rodents. In this case, it's rats and mice, and also in New Zealand, stoats, which are a big problem over there. So the history of the product, very quickly, is that New Zealand has no native mammals. And as a consequence, all of the birds that evolved in New Zealand have no natural defenses against rodents. You can think about the kiwi, you've probably heard of. It's a tiny little bird, extremely adorable, but it makes nests on the ground, which is unheard of in North America because no bird would do that, because they would get molested by rats and mice and all other kind of predators. But there were no predators in New Zealand. With man came rats and stoats and possum and mice. And so these rodents were pushing the New Zealand bird population to the brink of extinction. And since then, they've managed to restore several bird populations in several areas using these traps. So the nature of the trap itself is, it really is, the trap is the company, in the sense that that's the story. That's what we do. That's what we do, is distribute this product in North America, across the US and Canada. And what it does is use a lure. Actually, this is the body of the trap unit here. What happens is, at the top you place some lure, which would be any number of things. We market and sell a bunch of different lures, or you can use your own lure, like peanut butter. It goes in the top, and then the rat is trying, now this is a cutaway version of the product. The rat tries to get up to get at the lure, and then when it does, it triggers this trigger here. The CO2 cartridge is attached here, where the compressed gas goes up, and then this hammer here will slide across extremely quickly. And it strikes the rodent in the skull, and it kills it instantly. And this has been proven. They've done necropsies on dead rodents that have been killed by the product, and they can confirm that the skull and brain was crushed. So it sounds a little gruesome, but it's a necessary evil, because you have to really kill. You can't have commensal rodents. You can't live with rats and mice. It's just, humans we cannot coexist with them. So they have to be killed, because it's the only humane way to treat them. But we want to do it humanely. And I think the reason why I was asked to testify today is because this product was designed to be toxin free, and it is in fact completely toxin free. Uses no rodenticide or any kind of toxic. The lure itself is harmless, food grade chocolate or peanut butter or whatever you use in the top. Good Nature has used the product to completely eradicate all rats on an island in New Zealand. Or I should say, they're using the product to maintain a rodent-free island off of New Zealand's coast. There's several different areas where they're running it now, and they're also running these traps inside enclosures in Wellington, for example, Wellington, New Zealand, where they're keeping all of the invasive rodents out of an area that allow the birds to, reproduce and thrive. So that's my introduction. That's the product, and I would be happy to answer any of your questions.
Yeah, Representative Bosland.
Yeah, thank you for sharing about this. This is much more detail we've heard about alternative practices than from anyone else, and we've had a lot of testimony on this. I guess I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what's happening in California. As we understand, California is kind of the leader on not using rodenticides. Are they using your product? Do they have other strategies, and how is it working? Because I've heard some allusions to it's not California struggling without rodenticides, and I'm just curious what your take is as a Californian that works in pest management.
Sure. So California is our largest market by far. They're first of all, it's huge, of course, as a market. So that alone represents a big traction for us. Also, the rodenticide bans in California do drive people to our product. So not only can you not use certain second generation anticoagulant rodenticides, you also can't use some of the existing, even the first generation, in certain ways. So the pests that we focus on here are the California ground squirrel, rats, and mice. And then also where they exist, invasive gray squirrels. So those are the pests that we focus on. So the reason why the product is really effective is not so much that it kills them once, because you can do that with a regular snap trap. What makes the product unique is that it's so-called scavenger friendly. It's wildlife friendly. So our product is put in the outdoors, and when a rat gets killed by the product, it drops out of the trap, and then because it was killed with a fatal skull strike, it is now totally suitable for scavenging by wildlife. I sent a presentation link if you wanted to look at that. I have footage of this scavenging behavior because it's really important to understand that, because it's the same scavenging behavior that leads people to ban rodenticides in the first place, because you get wildlife and all kinds of different wildlife that eat the poisoned rodents, and then they become poisoned themselves. So if you would let me, I could show you. I'm not quite sure the easiest way to do that. I can present my screen and show you something. Would that work?
Can we do you need permission to share your screen, or do you have that?
I'll give it a try right now.
Okay.
It says here, hold shift. No, hold share document. No, I don't. It's not showing me what I'm hoping
There's usually a little green box that says share, but
Yeah, I clicked on that, and then now I'm looking at all it says. This is possibly a. If I try to share. Okay. This will take 1 second. I have to
Okay.
activate something. I would have to leave this and rejoin the meeting in order to accomplish this.
Well,
you can send it to us.
I think if you just want to describe what we would be seeing.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So what I was going to show you was that we have a lot of footage of animals coming and scavenging dead rodents from the bottom of the trap. So where our traps are typically best deployed is in the urban, rural, suburban, and rural environments. That is where there is wildlife to scavenge. So you can certainly use the product that we have in the basement or the attic or under the kitchen sink, any number of places. The kills of the rats that you get there, you have to clean yourself. And when there are tools, the traps are quite sophisticated. They have Bluetooth interfaces with your phone, so they'll tell you that you have a kill that needs to get cleaned up. However, if you put them somewhere where there's wildlife, and the footage I was going to show you showed skunks, fox, bobcat, coyote, turkey vultures, hawk, jaybirds, crows, ravens, all of those different animals have scavenged. I have footage of all that. And of course, anything will really, even other rats will scavenge a dead rat. Go ahead.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you. Blair, I'm a trapper back here in the Green Mountains, so I'm very intrigued by this tool that you have. How expensive is it?
With this unit, the rat and mouse trap, we have a kit that's $99.
Okay.
That's the starter kit, and then it goes up to $200, where it comes with a lot of extra elements like stand or a counter that electronically tracks how many you're killed and things like that.
Okay, how many strikes will you get out of one CO2 cartridge?
It depends on the model. The A24, which is the flagship product, gets 24 kills per CO2 cartridge. And the squirrel trap, which we're using against California ground squirrels as well as gray squirrels, gets 18. That trap also works on mongoose. I should point out that a lot of our traps are also being deployed in large areas in Hawaii in order to control the invasive pest problem they have there, because Hawaii is kind of like a twin to New Zealand in terms of its history ecologically, because they have no mammals in Hawaii either, and the bird populations there are under tremendous pressure from invasive rats. And so we're also working with a lot of state of Hawaii officials on saving
All
those
right.
birds.
So I can appreciate where you're using that outside. In California, are Generation 2s banned now? Or are they restricted?
They're restricted. So you can't buy them on the shelf. Consumers can't use them. There's a lot of applications that you can no longer apply them for, despite the labeling restrictions on the like the FDA restrictions don't allow you to use it in certain instances. A good example is subterranean. So you used to be able to use that subterranean for ground squirrels, but you can no longer use that product subterranean, which then makes it harder to control ground squirrels, which is why
Yeah. And what's the story with Generation 1s now out in California?
I'm not a regulatory expert. I can tell you, you can still buy them and you can still get Generation 1 anticoagulants. So there's sort of two things to consider. There's the consumer market and then there's the professional market. And the professional applicators have access to more and can use it in more places. Getting it off the shelf in a Home Depot is you can still buy first generation.
Okay.
Like
All right.
warfarin, for example.
Yeah, it's the same here now. Generation 2s, of course, are Class A under the EPA. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Representative Morgan.
Are there any instances where non-targeted species have been killed?
Yes, we
Unintended.
do occasionally have non-target issues. The traps are designed to prevent this because what they found in New Zealand was it was very important the birds not get killed that they're trying to save. And we've experienced this in Hawaii as well. There's a species of bird in Hawaii that we're working with the Kauai forest birds to try to save called the Pu'iohi. And there's only 500 left in existence. So we've gone to great lengths to build attachments for the product to keep out non-targets, so-called non-targets. However, there is occasion where you will get a non-target kill in a trap. They're not, no trap is 100% perfect, but a good example would be the Terra trap that we have for ground squirrels. It is designed in such a way that if you are going to get a non-target, it's probably a rat. So you're trying to kill ground squirrels, but you'll end up getting rats and mice. This is frequently the case because they're all attracted to the same lure, and it's the same type of device that actually provides the kill. So they'll go up to try to get the peanuts inside the tunnel that the ground squirrel is supposed to go up, and then we'll end up killing a rat or a mouse. You could theoretically get a bird, but it has to be very aggressive. It has to be really hungry to get up that tunnel.
Does the product line that you sell or represent, Blair, is that available across the country? You're based in California. I don't know whether you have a territory or could we, if we wanted to get something similar anyway, if not your product here in the Northeast, is it available?
Yes. Yes, it's available countrywide. We sell online. Most of our business is online direct. So on our website, somebody goes to automatictrap.com. They can see the whole product line, watch videos and the like, and then they order it and we deliver directly to them. You can also buy the product on Amazon.com, which we supply the Amazon store with the product as well.
What about the cartridges?
The replenishment cartridges are available also online. We fulfill them. So 5 cartridges, I think, is $20. And 5 cartridges would last your average homeowner a few years, hopefully, unless they're killing a lot, in which case it's good value. So yes, you can buy them online. In fact, we have hundreds of customers in your state.
That's a bucket kill, not counting the trap. So if you go
Pardon me?
through if you go through 5 cartridges at 24 rats, I'm just thinking 20, because unlike California, it gets down real cold here and the rats are still active. Real cold, Blair, real, like
Right.
10 below, 10, 20
Well, I'm
below.
originally from Canada, so
Oh,
I know
So
cold.
anyway, you know, figuring if you got 20 kills per cartridge, you know, that's 100, that's 20 cents a rat. And then how long is your trap good for if they don't run over it with a tractor?
It's I wish maybe I should have sent you one ahead of time, but if you could see it and feel it, it has the durability of a power drill or some kind of an like a handheld tool that you would buy at the hardware store. It's extremely rugged. Environmentally speaking, they have no problem going down to -20 and operating, because the gas that powers it is CO2, and that is a gas down to -70 degrees. So it operates in all temperature conditions. And it's extremely rugged and long lasting.
And do you sell replacement parts like for the hammer or for the plunger? I saw I had a plunger with gaskets in it and whatnot.
Sure. No, we don't sell any of those parts. We offer a 2-year money back guarantee. So if there's any problems within the first 2 years, the customer just lets us know. We'll swap them a brand new unit. If it's beyond that, sometimes depending on the circumstances, we'll extend a discount for the replacement of the unit. If it does require servicing, we take the unit back and then we recycle it, and then we would provide a new one. We don't really repair them. It's not practical from a cost point of view, but we do recycle the bodies and the parts.
So just to be clear then, Blair, there's not a lot of maintenance necessary if you have a unit that's mounted in an area where wildlife would be attracted to the carcasses. The only thing that you would have to do to keep things going is to replace the cartridge from time to time.
Yes. So the cartridge, after you get 18 or 24 kills, depending on which unit you're using, and the lure itself also requires replacement. So the way the system operates is that the lure cartridge sits in the top. So first of all, you can use your own lure, in which case you have to replace it whenever that lure requires replacement. And as a trapper, you'll know peanut butter's great, but it only lasts a day or two. So there's other lures you can use. You can refresh them constantly. We have a line of lure products that fit into the top of the product, and they slowly eject a gel, which is the lure itself. It smells like peanut butter. It's nut butter is one. We have meat lovers and chocolate. Those last 6 months. Yeah. Those lures will last 6 months. In the wild, so for example, in the jungle or the rainforest of Hawaii, they replace the CO2 cartridge and the lure every 6 months. That's just standard. Go ahead.
But you do have to be around, if you're not setting them out in the woods where a scavenger's gonna come by and take your intended quarry, or unintended, but mostly your intended quarry away. You do have to be around to remove the rodent from the base of the trap. And knowing how rats operate, I could see that maybe you'd get 2 or 3 stacked up before it was plugged.
Yes, we have footage of this as well, where rats will literally climb on top of and over a dead rat in order to get up into the trap, and then they get killed and they'll fall down on top of their dead brethren. Rats are not afraid of dead rats. It doesn't produce the same response in them that it would in us. So if you saw a person lying dead in front of a electrical panel, that was open, you would immediately think, oh, well, that panel probably killed that person. I should be really, careful. But the rodents don't operate that way, because there's nothing in the natural environment that kills a rat that leaves a dead rat behind. So
Yeah.
they're just not adapted to being afraid of dead rats.
Representative Morgan?
The baits could be edible. They're non-toxic. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. It's all human grade food that we use.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you again then for joining us this morning and giving us some information on this particular approach. And I don't see any other hands, so I think we can let you go.
Okay. I would suggest that you look at the video that I sent if you can play it. Specifically the scavenging. It's quite interesting and to see the wildlife taking away the kills. Thank you very much for your time.
I want to buy a trap to get your hat with that logo on it.
Yeah. All right. We'll work something out.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Oh,
All right, that video is on our committee page.
I will watch that. I can't wait to
Movie
watch.
night? Yes, there's popcorn over there.
I think the concern in using that here is that it would target gray squirrels. Gray squirrels have a season where you never can trap them.
No.
It's only shooting or nothing.
Yeah, no, it would be a tool in the box. It would be the tool in the box. So if you have an area where you are concerned about raptors or bobcats or fisher getting in you got a friend. You know, getting access to rodents that have been, you don't want secondary poisoning. This would be a great tool. And by the way, I found out, because I've been bromethylene, I've been tearing it up. There is no secondary poisoning with bromethylenes. So using bromethylen in a bait station to keep your dogs, cats, and children away from it is
Effective
effective
without side effects.
without, yeah, well, hopefully without unintended side effects. It's man-made, nothing's perfect.
And you were saying, Leland, that in Vermont, there's no season on trapping gray squirrels. Is that what you
It's
were?
always, it's a closed season. You can shoot them from September through December, shoot them
Yeah.
for eating, but there is no trapping of them.
Yeah, interesting.
See, this trap would be great to control red squirrels that are trying to, because red squirrels will burrow, you can get
They
in
are
your
true
house.
rodents. There is no closed season.
No, and so,
Funny story about that.
it would work for controlling red squirrels
And chipmunks.
and chipmunks, because if you use the anti-flagrant on them, they run off and hit back to the woods or whatever. It's
Why don't we take our break? We've got more testimony right at 10:45, so we'll take 10 minutes. And then